So it's important to completely surrender judgments. Oh yeah, so when we forgive completely and surrender our judgments, the situation is transfigured and we see the lovability of the person and we see that there is nothing to forgive. And that is said in the Course, you see. In the place of truth, once you're forgiven, you see there is nothing to forgive. You get to a place where you're connecting to the essence and realize that there's nothing to forgive at that level. But in the world of practice, sometimes, practical sense, sometimes there are actions you need to take. With unconditional love, if you want to move towards unconditional love, then it does mean surrendering all judgments and resentments. So in that sense, anything that comes up into consciousness that is unforgivable, one needs to work on that. So for example, if one found Adolf Hitler is unforgivable, he's the one person that is unforgivable because of what he's done, then he's the person one has to try and work on, you see. You can, as you start to pray or use the Course in Miracles, pray for a miracle to see Adolf differently, or the step 4 resentment prayer from 12 steps. I humbly ask, dear God, I humbly ask you to remove my resentment against Adolf Hitler. Please help me treat him with the same patience, tolerance, kindness and love I cheerfully grant a sick person. How can it be helpful to him? God save me from being angry. For me, as you do that, suddenly it allows a recontextualization or spiritual insight comes in. You know, is it possible to forgive Adolf for what he did? Maybe he bought into various programs or ideas that were popular or in certain areas within Nazi Germany. So through doing that, you know, one starts to get forgiveness. So it is forgiving the unforgivable. And, you know, I'm very grateful. Yeah, I don't think, I get mild resentments, but they usually pass very, very quickly. And I haven't got any major ones at the moment, so that's good. Okay. Yes, one of the major ways of getting compassion for others, even if you feel they've done wrong, is to realize that most people have just got their belief systems by being programmed at some point, you know. So if you realize that the intrinsic nature of consciousness is innocent, the intrinsic nature of consciousness is innocent, and that in this dimension one has most likely got programmed for various belief systems that are there. So you see someone committing a really bad, or let's say there's a thief or a burglar, how can anyone do such a thing? But they may have got programmed by various belief systems. So you see that intrinsically they got programmed, but intrinsically they're innocent. And then when you see that from that level, it's easy to forgive. But if you see that they're wrong and you hold them to the judgment, it's difficult to release. So as you start to forgive everyone, you start to get in conscious contact with their inner presence or a beingness that pervades at all times. And then eventually the beauty is recognized. As you work on lovingness or unconditional love, you find that addictive patterns start to fall away, because it's the level where all healings start to take place, both physically and in terms of emotional problems. If you're committed to unconditional love and you have something that keeps recurring, it's probably karmic, so just to have compassion for yourself and just to keep working your spiritual program. So not to be discouraged. So at different levels of consciousness, you see things differently. So from a low level of consciousness, if you saw a homeless person on the street, you know, the filters from a low level would be, oh, that person's probably a bum. Or he could be dangerous, that person on the street. Or, you know, that person on the street, you know, he's probably just wasting taxpayers' money. You know, it shouldn't be that. Or that the person is probably like nuts and they should be in a mental hospital. So that's how you view them from a low level of consciousness. When you're doing spiritual work and starting to get to higher levels, or even from from a high level, you might see that the person on the street is a very interesting person. You know, he could be he might have an interesting life story. Or he could even be someone who's like spiritually advanced and has just surrendered all his attachments and is just trusting to life. So you start to see things in a different way. So also, as you commit to love, you're counterbalancing the negativity through Hawkins' research. You're counterbalancing the negativity of many, many thousands below you from what we've done. So now we're going to talk, this is a significant bit, the difference between romantic love and spiritual love, and the differences. I think we mentioned this before, but the others didn't hear it. So, okay, so what's the difference between romantic love, or love that is traditionally seen in the world, and spiritual love? So Hawkins likes to refer to the romantic thing as infatuation, the energy of infatuation. So infatuation calibrates at 145.
Oh, that's low.
Yeah, so it's very, very low. Infatuation calibrates.
Must remember the next time. Yeah.
Infatuation is very, very low. Infatuation calibrates at about 145, and it correlates with adrenaline and sex hormones. So, and it's calibrating about 145, and it reflects the mating instinct of the animal. So basically, it's of animal origin. Usually there's a lot of adrenaline and a lot of sex hormones. It calibrates about 145. So when you get to real love, the intention is more how can you serve the relationship. That's the major intention. How can you serve the relationship, rather than coming from a place of wantingness or craving. Let's see. So okay. So the difference between, so really for me actually what society calls love is not really spiritual love. It's something different. And there's a table that Hawkins has done which shows the differences. So with, so infatuation, it's connected with passion and attraction, calibrates 145, where the real field of love starts at about 500. And above, 540 being unconditional love. So, yeah, it originates from animal instinct, infatuation. At the level of love, it's more to enjoy the other person. It's not from animal instinct. The intention with infatuation is just to get a mate. You need a mate, to get a mate. Yeah, so with love, it's enjoying. Usually when it's just infatuation, purely, the relationship is very transitory. It doesn't last very long. It's just like, while the infatuation is there. With spiritual love, relationships can be very, very long term, because the energy of that can be ongoing for a very long time. Now the emotions, with infatuation you'll find a roller coaster of emotions. I'm really, really attracted to this person, can't stop thinking about them, and there seems to be a lot of adrenaline and a lot of excitement. So, but you'll notice that, and if they like you, then you get it even higher. If they don't like you, then you just suddenly plummet down. So it's like a huge sort of roller coaster. So you know that you're in that kind of the infatuation, the animal type thing.
It's all about getting, isn't it?
Yes, it's coming from that getting. So you get more excited if you think you're getting them, and if something doesn't go right, then your emotions plummet. So you're very emotional with coming from the field of 145, infatuation. Whereas when you're coming from the loving fields, 500 and up, you tend to be far more balanced and stable. You tend not to have such huge highs and lows. Yeah, so as you were saying, generally, one is desperate, basically. Whereas in love, one is enhanced. You also have a negative effect on bodily functions. When you're in infatuation, you can get physical symptoms like loss of appetite or impaired sleeping. So it's not very good for the physical body as well. All kinds of stuff. Whereas actually in true love, your physical function is improved because you're coming from endorphins, which are stable. So your body will be, if you check yourself in true love, your body will actually come out physiologically as strong. So actually your physical body and your stability and your emotional stability are actually steady and improved. Whereas in infatuation, you're below 200. So you're actually, things like loss of sleep or loss of appetite are because you're blowing out your meridians at that point. So
that really relates to like a really practical level, I think, just from our experience thinking about, like times in my life where I've been in infatuation, the whole body's an adrenaline.
yes.
Yeah. And it's kind of like the highs and lows and exhausting. But being in a comparative relationship where like actually my weight and stuff stabilised very much. I haven't got sick a lot, and it's kind of just like all clicking, like, oh yeah, that's why that happens, that's why you sleep really well, and blah, blah, blah. It kind of just, makes sense.
Yeah,
definitely. But I think anyone can relate to the whole, like, if they are like, about someone, they'll, be like really churned up and really kind of like on the floor 1 minute and dancing next,
and you can be doing spiritual work and you can let the transitoriness go and get to that.
But I find it interesting how society makes the whole like up and down really romantic. It's like that's desired, and I used to think that was really romantic, and now I don't. I'm having a different view on it. But society as a whole thinks the whole like I need you, like love is a roller coaster, blah blah blah, is really good.
And
all those movies as well.
The movies, the songs,
like
everything,
and the running back, and the rain stuff. And it's funny how it's seen on a really positive level when it's so lowly calibrated.
It's an addiction. That's what I've definitely learnt with Sabbir, because Sabbir knows that obviously that's like one of my addictions that I've had, and and I don't know what I was going to say. I can't remember where I was going with this.
I think it's a major thing when you get to advanced spirituality to recognise the difference between the two. And even when you get to the most advanced, it's the love of God versus attachments as well in the thing. So at unconditional love, there's still the me and there's you and we're loving each other. But if you want to, were you going to say something?
Well, I was just thinking, especially with younger people, the infatuation stage is almost 100% with people. That's the attraction. It's one of the things I've noticed as I got much older. I was still quite infatuated in my 60s. But in the 70s, I'm not at all infatuated anymore. But how does the young couple know when it's the infatuation over and it becomes something more real?
I suppose everybody can recognize this addictive kind of behavior really when you are in that stage.
I suppose.
I'm sure young people can, I remember.
I think like in my
everybody
experience,
recognizes it.
Because I'd also been to like things that used to be like make me really high off it, and my current boyfriend now, it just felt really stable and really like, and I was like, when I dig the first, and I was like, does this feel a bit bland? Like, what's happening? I'm not like up here, but I'm really like solid. And it was like part of my head wasn't used to it. It was like, where's the high gone? What's that? But then it just was like an I don't know how to say, like a known, not like does not, like it wasn't a question, it was just like so it was very different, but I think a part of my like kind of old brain was like what is this?
There's no there's no roller coaster here.
Kind of. It was like when you first find some sort of peace, and I think a bit of your ego is a bit like.
You're too peaceful.
Yeah. I guess.
Yeah, I was watching a bit of The Greatest Generation. It's the people who were adults, but they're still alive and they're all in their 90s. And there were so many lovely old couples in their 90s who were obviously in love still.
Yeah.
It was real love, you know, they'd been together, some of them 70 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
They were so sweet. Really, you can tell by the way she'd look at him that she still cared for him, and he's a decrepit old man.
If you had a vaccination for 70 years, your immune system would.
Exactly. Your immune system's get packed up. Yes. Very true.
Yeah, that's great.
Is it like a desire as well? Because I think like what I've noticed for myself is that before it was definitely like something I was getting so much pleasure of, just that excitement that and like can mess around with it. But then now it's just when I look at it, it's just like I think it's just like a waste of my time, because I feel like it's just like me wanting those pair of shoes. That's literally how I like perceive it now. It's just because it's that thought that's just bothering me. And then like when I actually realise what it is at the end of the day, it's like, what is this? Get away from me. I don't need to be like around this energy. But
Yes.
It can be exhausting as well, that kind of energy actually. Very exhausting.
That's one thing that I'm going through as well, is like the severeness. I feel like it's okay for sharing it with you, is I'm trying to wean myself off my ex, my boyfriend, because I feel like that's definitely something that is stopping me. And I didn't even realise like how attached I was. It's actually scary.
There's that one spiritual lesson, like everyone has their one thing. That's like the big one to really go work with. But I think it's very true, like you said, even in your relationship, because I found it like hard to get into my head at the start, but I was like, I kind of have a sort of like God does come first. Like, and it's sometimes really hard to remind yourself that, because society can be so like, oh, this is the way your life looks with someone else, and you go through life like that. But my response has always been quite like, you sort of go into this life by yourself and you leave it by yourself, and you need to find the solid place first. And I like that, because it like gets my head down from the crowd sometimes when I'm a bit like go up with the collective, and I'm like, oh, actually there's like, I just need to connect to God and like the essential, and then I can do that, like not the other way around.
My last infatuation was 10 years ago.
Oh yes.
And I remember saying to this person that I had deteriorated mentally, spiritually, that was the third one, since I met you. I was speaking the truth. Nice person, but not the right person for me.
Yes. So I think the 500s is quite nice, because then your main intention is just to be loving and to support the other person. It's a very good place to have a relationship. If you're pursuing higher levels, enlightenment, it would be to be loving, equally loving at all times, without exception. So it'd be like, let's just like the Course in Miracles lesson, you see. It's like, you're in front of me, I love you now, 100%, no thoughts required, just 100% lovingness being channeled through. And then as the split second I look at Anna, I forgot, you're gone. It's like, that was the last moment, you see. No attachment to the past. It's like,
I don't blame you.
Conversation today.
in spirit today.
So then it's like no thought, 100% presence, 100% just lovingness there with Anna. And then it's the plant, you see. Then you figure out
oh, even drugs.
There's the plant, yes.
Serial monogamy.
Oh my God.
So that's at that level. That's the practice anyway. So you don't hold on to. It's just 100% lovingness present at all times. You're not holding on to what was the last moment. Hawkins, one of my favourite things was when Hawkins illustrated, because I'm a food addict, and he talked about it once. He's like, when he's eating a sandwich, he's enjoying the sandwich, but then if the phone rings and he picks up the phone, he's totally forgotten the sandwich. He forgets even to go back to it because it's that present. You see, there is hardly any recollection. You see, one is 100% present with the phone call.
Yeah.
And then it's like, and then there's a sandwich left there for a while, half uneaten. You see, there's no like hooking into it from the past.
Yeah, I've done that.
So, and I agree with what's said earlier. I mean, just in culture, the infatuation of love is called love. This huge up and down, this huge drama, which of course, if you're, especially in the lower levels, it's like a high. It's an addictive high. I see that person, I can fantasize about that person, and then you ask them out on a date, and if they say yes, you go even higher. More adrenaline is released, more sex hormones are released. And if they suddenly say, actually, I'm going out with someone else, then you crash down.
I think that's why so many showbiz relationships fail, because they meet on a set and they think the other person is probably attractive. And, I think the other person's the bee's knees, and don't really know them as people.
I think from when you get to the higher levels of consciousness, you won't get such a pull because you're already living in the 500s. So it's going to be much smaller because you're already at a very high level. Whereas in the low levels, if I'm calibrating at 145 and I'm feeling quite negative a lot of the time, and then I suddenly get an infatuation, it's like quite addictive. So it's like, I want the next infatuation if this doesn't work out, just to get out of the negativity. To keep, so I could be just infatuated with the next, like with codependency, they never want to be alone. So it's like, okay, relationship, I'm feeling better because I'm in a relationship. If it's gone, they can't bear it. So grab the next person as quickly as possible so you're not alone. And then so that they don't have to feel their normal state of consciousness. Whereas for someone at 500, they feel pretty okay as they are. So if someone leaves them, it's like, well, I still feel relatively okay. It's not a big thing. Maybe a minor dip, but it's quickly adjusted. So you don't get so. So as what I was showing before, we don't get in the high 500s. You don't get addicted so easily because your set level is already quite peaceful and content. Whereas in the low levels, if you're feeling miserable and you get your first infatuation, you can be a serial romantic, you see, but never being alone. You don't experience your own level. So. One is infatuated by the addictive thing, which is essentially that you're having a low state of consciousness, or you just love being infatuated, and when you get the thing, you get a high. So it's just the high is just the absence, this temporary suppression. So you might also get the thing of you get a relationship and then eventually wears off, so you need to get a new one. To get the new high, because eventually it's no longer working. So just to have a loving, stable. If a loving, stable relationship, you can see really what's happened there is that you've got a strong connection to presence. So you can be loving for a long time, and the lovingness of the other person, and you're not really swayed by things.
I'm wondering, like our society especially, And looking at these old couples that I saw together, I thought, well, that's the ideal. But you can really be really happy without that.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. But society doesn't tell us that. You know, if you say like me, and you know, I'm 74 almost.
Yes.
And alone in a small flat. You know, so that's considered pathetic by society. Really think that you're really a poor old decrepit lonely old man, but it's not like that at all.
No.
That's just part of the mass collective
belief
system.
Yeah, it is.
I mean, it's also, I think, in the mass collective that people who are very spiritually aligned sometimes are. They just are connected to God, but they're seen as kind of odd people.
Well, a lot of people are lonely and but because they haven't developed, I guess, over the years. Because
but lonely and alone are two different things, you see, because you can be alone, but not necessarily being lonely.
So you can be with somebody and be lonely.
You can be with a lot of people and be very lonely.
And for me, so that's true. If there's a huge attachment, that they're the only thing worth living for.
It's the other person.
And or if you have beliefs that they're the source of my life, the only reason worth staying around. I think that's one of the great things with doing spiritual work or helping others spiritually, so that you can't solely be that you just live for the other person and that's the only reason for life. So, like just being interested in spirituality and trying to be of use or loving towards others would mean you still have something to do in this lifetime.
Would that go on karmically? Like, say the couple who died and they'd never sort of, as it was, spiritually resolved that attachment. Karmically, if they got reincarnated, would that same sense of lack still be unaddressed?
Yes, absolutely. So generally speaking, in most cases, you keep reincarnating and reincarnating and reincarnating until all the patterns that bind you to the world of limitation in this world are transcended, and then you're enlightened. That's what Buddha said. If you reach enlightenment, you don't have to keep coming back here any longer. That's the benefit. And you don't have to suffer old age, sickness and death, the downside of being a human being. So that's why Buddha promoted enlightenment, as you don't have to keep coming back, the negative side of life. So yes, for me as well, my intuition and from what I've read is that you may come back with the same person, you may give them a different person just to reflect that lesson. So you get an opportunity to sometimes I think you might get the same soul again, or sometimes you might just get a different soul that will reflect the pattern. And so the thing is, it could be, the lesson would be like, you get so attached to a person that that's the only meaning for living. And so you let them go. So probably the next lesson would be learning a connection to higher power, to God, so that there is still work, still to be an expression of that love, or even to transcend, like Anna said, transcend or have enlightenment. Let go of the attachment to people and trust, see what would happen then. So that could be an advanced lesson. So, but that is one way. That's one of the benefits of pursuing enlightenment. You see, I think for myself, and I often chat. Sometimes you feel like you've been to this world again and again and again. And it's like, this time, I don't want to keep coming back.
And the things, I think, are repeated from one lifetime to the other. I did some work with this German woman a couple of years ago. It was called multi-incarnation. I can't remember what it was called. But anyway, it was quite interesting. What she was saying, and actually experienced it, is the various themes are repeated in various lifetimes, and if you go, let's say, I don't know, into one lifetime and you resolve this particular issue in one lifetime, you resolve it for other lifetimes too. So it's kind of, it's quite, amazing actually, So.
Well, it's the patterns that manifest.
That's right,
The patterns that manifest. So let's say, what's a pattern? Let's say the pattern that keeps manifesting is that I keep going into. I did have this actually. In my first job in a bank, I had a manager who I thought was unfair, and then in the stock market I had a tyrannical manager. So I was manifesting those patterns. So if I don't resolve that, I don't resolve that issue within myself. It'll either keep happening in this lifetime, or it'll keep happening next lifetime. Yeah. Now, if let's say that's one karmic lesson, and let's say I've got 10 karmic lessons, those are just 10 belief systems that I have, and they'll keep manifesting time and time again. They materialize out of,
it's just a thought. I don't. I had a brother who quite honestly bullied me his whole life. Even the last time I saw him, he bullied me.
Yes.
And as far as I can remember, I'd given him unconditional love, but he continued to bully me.
Yes.
And his sons probably put it accurately, that he was jealous of me.
Right.
But I'm just wondering, have I dealt with him? Is it gone because I didn't react in any way, or get angry at him, or hate him, or I haven't. And I remember saying, even as a little boy, when he'd be beating me,
yes,
I'd say, why do you hate me? I love you.
Yes.
And I remember that very distinctly. Yeah. But even at when he was 70, he was still seemed to hate me. Yeah.
I mean, my intuition, my guess on that one is, if you've forgiven it, you let it go. However, sometimes there can be like a karmic overhang that you and possibly there's choice in either not being around him. That would be a karmic option. So I think you've forgiven him, so that's the lesson learned. But there can be a lesson learned whether you stick around him or not.
Yeah.
And sometimes, and for me, even if I've forgiven someone and there's still some negativity, I would just accept that as just some kind of karmic thing that just needs to burn off and will disappear at some point.
Yeah. But I feel that I've loved him, but I'm quite happy he's no longer in the family.
Right.
It's a much happier family without him, because he bullied everybody.
Right.
And he was really, as my younger brother says, our brother Michael wasn't a very nice man.
But I think those situations personally, and I don't think anybody else outside of yourself can tell you whether you've resolved it within yourself or not, from my experience. I think you yourself know whether there's something, there's some kind of energetic kind of block there or something, or some kind of still remaining. I don't think anybody, I don't know what Sabbir says, outside of yourself can tell unless, I think it's difficult for somebody, to say whether you've resolved personally.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, what you said is correct. I mean, if you say you've completely forgiven him and you feel there's nothing there, my guess would be you've resolved it.
Hopefully, I don't want to come back with him again.
However, if you feel there is something there that you're still holding on to, then you can resolve that. We can check it out kinesiologically if that's available, but otherwise, I think it's resolved. Anyway, if it's not resolved, life will show you. So you don't need to. If you feel it's gone and it has completely gone, then it's completely gone. It won't trouble you again. But if something ever troubles you that looks similar again, then that will be life presenting another opportunity to make sure.
Right.
Yes.
Right.
That's a good point actually. Yeah.
So, and often life won't wait around. Sometimes when you fully resolve something, it just doesn't happen any longer. So it probably is. Whereas if you wait a period of time and something very similar starts to happen,
you go
to a new club and there's someone who's just like your brother who starts behaving that way towards you again, then that's the thought hasn't been resolved. So for me, it's like we talked about the power of belief systems and how they can actually manifest within the world. And I just love, I keep repeating this one, but we had the guy with the motorbike who comes here, and he has the thought that no one's going to steal his motorbike. So he's never locked his motorbike in London, and it's never been stolen. So that thought, I mean, that's such an amazing thing of the power of belief. So can a thought, someone being absolutely confident and trusting that I can leave my bike unlocked, and all of London, all the thieves in London just don't happen to check his bike ever. But it's such a cultural belief, because I hear everyone talking about their bikes getting stolen all the time. I'm not sure I'd be that trusting. But his hasn't. So when you let go of the belief, it's so powerful, it can't happen. But while the belief is still there, it like pulls it in. So if you're fearful someone's going to steal your bike, and you have a strong belief that someone will, then having that belief system will mean that someone will steal your bike at some point, because it manifests. But on a certain level, you don't need to worry about it, because if you haven't resolved it, you'll be shown. And things are given to you in a manner that can handle them, or have a chance of handling them. Okay, so if you're committed to unconditional love, it's like I said, that's serious commitment to let go of all payoffs, such as being right, to gain, to win, to be admired, and also the subtle payoffs, such as I know. You need to let that go. As you work on the, as you go past the 540s, you may get to the siddhis. The siddhis are probably around 570. So if you're into advanced spiritual work, you get all kinds of, that's the start of the extraordinary spiritual phenomena. So you can get things like distant viewing may occur once you hit the 570s, precognition, clairvoyance, psychometry, and bilocation, being in two places at once. So you can see that by letting go of time and location and things, all kinds of spiritual phenomena may start to occur.